Good.
Okay, you're the CEO of Printify, now president at FYUL. Everybody knows how impressive of an operator you are. You're also a mother. So which Anastasija do we have here today, the exec or the mother?
Good question. What time is it? Around 1 p.m., right? Which means that my kid just had his lunch. He is out on a walk with his nanny. Will fall asleep in approximately 15 minutes. And now I'm in the executive mode, absolutely.
Awesome. So what do you track right now? You know, Gleb is interested in tracking things. Everybody probably has their trackers right now. Be it yourself, your son. What does that tracking workspace look like these days?
Yeah, excellent question. So for myself, I continue tracking all of the things that I was excited to track historically, which is basically my well-being indicators, right? I have an Oura ring, Whoop. I'm tracking my sleep. I'm tracking my activity levels, my stress levels. My sleep depth, to be honest, was awful this week. And the reason for that is that my team at FYUL, the leadership team, is on a leadership offsite in the US. And I made a decision not to travel with them. I stayed home, but that means that I'm operating in the US time zone and staying up until 3 a.m. sometimes to be able to participate in the meetings. As for my kid, I'm kind of tracking most of the things around his schedule. And well, for me, it's important to know what he's doing and when, how he's feeling, like when did he woke up from a nap. And we have this app that we all are using, whoever is looking after the kid, is it his grandma, a nanny, myself, or my husband, and we are entering all of the events that are actually happening. And what I'm doing is I'm analyzing it, honestly, and then I'm creating a brief for the next day. I'm setting his schedule in order to kind of have some predictability in my life. I need to know when he goes to sleep, especially in the evening, so that I can take that work meeting late in the evening. My kid goes to sleep around 7:45 p.m. and from 8 until later on I'm available for work calls. So actually, like, there are many things you can track about kids. The unfortunate thing is that you have little control over them, and that is something that I had to learn, right? So I thought that, okay, like, I'm gonna learn everything about baby schedules and how to make sure that they sleep enough through the night and the sleep quality is good. And like, even like best of the books out there don't help you to deal with the reality, which is that sometimes there are things that you have to just accept, not try to control, and just kind of have an open mind and be flexible about how your day is going to unfold.
So what you're describing is very much what it's like to build a startup. And I remember when I had my daughter, people were asking, oh, you know, so what is it like? What does it feel like? And I was like, you're a founder. You know what it means to build a startup. My baby is just another startup. And from what I hear, it sounds like you're applying the same mindset. And I really like the phrase that you used right there at the backstage when you called yourself the CEO of the family. So yeah, explain to the rest of the audience as to what that mindset means and how are you taking your lessons learned at the office into the home?
Absolutely. So actually, like, the way, like, I like to think in systems, and I kind of broke down motherhood for myself in systems sort of thinking as two key factors, right? So everybody says, like, you know, motherhood is tough, especially in that first year, and they blend it all together. But for me, it's two things, right? It's the kid that is like the absolute pleasure. You love them to bits and they bring you joy and nothing else but joy. And then there is the whole day-to-day management stuff and not sleeping stuff that actually is kind of the tough part of it. And kind of based on this understanding, what I aimed to optimize straight away is this whole household running, household management stuff. So what I did, I thought about, like, considering that, like, I've been in pretty kind of high responsibility positions at work for a long time. I asked myself, like, how much time am I willing to take off? When do I want to come back? And what will it take to get there? For me, what it meant was actually having help pretty early on at home. So it was also thinking about, okay, like what do I want to have as part of my day-to-day? Like honestly, like it's like 3-tier prioritization. Like, so what are the must-haves, what are nice-to-haves, and what things I can, maybe deprioritize, and kind of building the whole system around it, including hiring the people who can support me, stopping doing some things, and delegating as much as I can.
And I understand you actually hired nannies and other people to help you at home before you even gave birth. That is, usually moms do the opposite, and I guess I'm in that situation. I was at home with my daughter, and I'm like, okay, now now I'm going back to work. I have an amazing village at home that supports me, but I was like, oh, okay, so nannies, that's a fairly new topic in my life, but I understand you were really proactive about this even before you gave birth. What were the decisions you made, what you now understand much earlier than others to be as proactive about the process?
Yeah, so I thought backwards. I thought, what would be kind of, what are my goals? What I want my day-to-day to look like a year from now, let's say. And like, do I see myself back at work? How do I see my day-to-day generally? Like, what has to be part of my day-to-day? And based on that, I understood that, for example, things that I can outsource is cleaning, right? It's also cooking food, because if you have a nanny, you usually kind of offer food for them. And like, I didn't want to spend my time cooking for the nanny while she's spending time with my kid. Like, that's nonsense, right?
Sense, yeah.
I also thought about the timeline of when I would want to start thinking about returning back to work. And for me, it was like around 6 to 9 months when my kid was around that age. So I made a decision, okay, like breastfeeding, for how long? Let's look at the studies and what they say, right? Okay, the minimum is 6 months. Is that comfortable for me? Yes, right? Nanny, I will need her probably even earlier than those 6 months, because to return, I have to feel comfortable leaving the kid with the nanny earlier, and they have to know her and then feel good so that everybody has a peace of mind. What else? Like, sleep is super important for me, right? So like, I've never slept as many hours as I did over the past year, I think. So as a result, I made a decision that I will need nanny straight away, and I started recruiting her, I think when I was like around 4 or 5 months pregnant.
Okay.
And like, it's tough, right? So you need to find a person that you can absolutely trust. And it's like, different roles require different skill sets, right? And like, when you're looking for the nanny, it's similar as to looking for an assistant or an executive assistant. So it has to be a person like super organized, super good at following directions, and willing to take care of your kid, of you, because in those early days, right, like you are the one who needs to be taken care of, and of the environment at home, right? So based on those criteria, I was like really recruiting heavily. I had a process, like I had a call with them, asked the standard questions. Then we met one-on-one. Then we met together with my husband. Then I had a follow-up meeting, clarifying the details. I checked the references, so all of that.
Yeah.
Right?
So you very much do run your family as a company. You do recruiting, you do alignment, you use this, you introduce tools and systems to keep everybody on track, and then you track KPIs.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. But also, as in the startup world, and even more so, I imagine in the family world, as you said, so much is out of your control, and I imagine that there must have been either painful experiences or decisions you've made consciously to not, say, track everything, or leave times in the day that are entirely out of your control, and that you're perhaps willing to just go with the flow. Is that how you operate, or you're like, nope, you could optimize everything, you just have to try harder?
No, it's living in constant feeling of guilt, and I think like everybody who's working and a mom can relate, right? You feel guilty for not spending enough time with your kid. You feel guilty for, not working 24/7 the way you're used to, right? And then you feel more or less like anxiety about everything that's going on. Like, for example, as I already mentioned, like I'm not in that offsite at the moment.
Yeah.
I don't feel good about that, to be honest, right? So like my FOMO is going crazy. I feel that I'm missing important conversations, and like I'm not in the room to be able to contribute at any point in time, because like the informal stuff also matters, right?
Yeah, of course.
Especially when kind of you're
When
driving.
you've been away and you're coming back, and that cohesion is so important, right?
Absolutely. So, and then kind of the important thing is to quiet your mind, to understand the big picture. So like, this is a decision I made. I wanted to be a mom. I wanted to return back to work, right? So like, I'm not a victim here. Like, I'm just living the result and the consequences of my decisions, and I'm optimizing as we go. So for now, it's this. Maybe in 3 months, when the kid gets older, I'm able to travel wherever I need, right?
Yeah. Awesome. So I do want to talk a lot about, how that process looked like at your work. But before I do that, just want to take a moment of appreciation. Your son is right now out napping and strolling and having the time of his life in the sunny day. So is my daughter. So, a huge shout out to your village and mine, who makes it possible.
Who is in your village, by the way? How come did you manage?
Yeah, so my village is a bit different than yours. So I am just returning back to work, and I know you are back full time. I'm still part time, I have organized my life around my village, but like you said earlier, at the backstage, you look at your life and these 4 sets of priorities, and then how do you arrange them accordingly? So there's work, there's your son's well-being, your own well-being, and your relationships. And I was reflecting on that and thought, well, actually, my village is kind of arranged in those 4 buckets. So it's my mother-in-law who gets the biggest credit. She takes care of my daughter during work time, and you know that better than anybody. That when you have that time, you're like, the clock is off, and I'm like, okay, I have 8 hours for work. The time starts now. No WhatsApp, no social media. I have to execute, and I've been very clear from the start that when it's my mother-in-law with my daughter, that is my work time. Then it's my own mother who comes in once a week and in evenings, and that is my quality time with my husband. Sometimes it feels like that's the only time a week I see him, because it's such a juggle. And then everything else, so friends, gym, my own well-being, I negotiate directly with my husband, and in a way that works out as a very natural, almost. It almost feels like a trading opportunity, because those are things that matter to him as well, and we make it very explicit and visible on how we trade our individual time with our friends, how we manage our own gym experiences, and mental well-being, because that is exactly what matters in his life, and the time I take for me, and that is how we keep check on each other, that both of us get enough time outside home, but also are present with our family. My schedule looks very much it changes depending on who I have available, but that simply works as a very good signal for myself, and that's how I try to minimize my blame. If I have my work time, that is my work time. I know that I will have my gym time later in the evening, and I think that is the only way how you can negotiate that. Okay, so you're executing at home. It's obviously mostly joy, sometimes frustrations. You're also now back full time. So how was that process like? Before you became pregnant, how did you set the scene for your shareholders, for your team? Tell me about and for the other would-be moms and dads in the audience. Take out your notes. Please do share. How did you prep the team for this?
Well, probably we're starting with the fact that I always knew that I want to be a mom someday, but it was never the right time, just because my career progression was pretty steep, and there were always like many more exciting projects to take care of. And like when reflecting at that, actually the first I started being transparent and negotiating my leave was many years before I went on one. Mm-hmm. So when I was accepting a job offer from Printify, it was like 4 years ago already, I was upfront with the shareholder and CEO at the time, James, that, well, you know, I'm like 30 years old, so like soon I'm gonna plan to take some time off and go on maternity. I'm absolutely planning to, you know, have the right succession plan and to make sure that the company is well during that time. And I plan to come back as soon as I can, but like, just so you know, and like that was the first time we spoke about this. Then in around 2 years, when I was offered the CEO position at Printify, we had that conversation again. I said, like, nothing's changed, like I'm pushing it forward a bit because of this, right? But you should know. And then we had a conversation with the board as well, right? So, so we have actually very cool set of board members. And all of them said, okay, we understand, let's kind of think for now, and then kind of let's have the succession plan. So I kind of delayed the decision again, and then there was a merger between the Printify and Printful, right? And again, like I delayed my plans. And then when we were structuring the new joint company, FYUL, like that conversation came up again. And actually I had to level my ambitions a bit and my ego a bit, understanding that, okay, like whatever I take on my plate now, I have to consider the fact that like now, like my clock is ticking. I was like almost 35 at that time, right? So again, I was upfront with everybody. I was upfront with my new boss now, Alex. And actually what I was happy to see was that everybody understands, right? So like kids are part of life, and like it's okay. I wouldn't be afraid to speak about that. However, like as any employee, when you come to somebody with a problem, you should also come with solutions, right? So like have the conversation up front, have a succession plan, make sure that people around you are aware of your plans so that they can make the right decisions. For example, structuring the team, right? Do we need that person or not? Okay, like we know that Anastasija is going on a leave, probably sometime in a year. Let's kind of have that person here so that they can catch the things that kind of have to be redistributed. So that was generally kind of preparing for the whole thing. And then again, kind of when I was already pregnant, I didn't wait until the 3rd trimester to speak about it, which is what people often do. And nowadays it's even easier, right? Because you work remotely most of the days. Then on the days that you come to the office, you can wear something oversized. But no, I had that conversation early, and I came with a plan, with a succession plan, how my workload is going to be redistributed to which people, what we do with the role names, like what we do with the team members, how and when potentially I come back, and how do I gather it back in. What do I do during my time off? Will there be time when I'm completely off? And there was, right? So it was like around 2 or 3 months where I joined only the board meetings and nothing else. And kind of what access do I need in order to be able to maintain kind of being current with the things that are happening in the company? And when I start ramping back on, like what are the things with which I can drive the most value?
Yeah.
One commitment that I didn't give is, okay, 6 months and I'm going to be back. I wanted to, honestly, like this is how my mind works, like set yourself a goal and a timeline, right? But like I was fortunate, or like my husband said, like, don't commit, you don't know, right? It's your first experience being a mom, don't commit to anything like that. And actually, like Alex, the CEO, he also has several kids, and he said, like, we'll be happy to have you back anytime, right? But don't promise anything, and then don't push yourself too hard. And that was very helpful. So that let me feel okay to leave and to take the time off, to really be ready to come back when I was.
So what I'm hearing there is an insane level of agency from your side. So also, like Agnes just shared earlier, silence breeds miscommunication. So you literally flip the script upside down. You're like, nope, you know, I will still have a child one way or another, so might as well deal with it and, you know, be prepared as much as we can for it. So that's awesome.
Yeah, but it was very important for me not to let people down, right? So if I'm entrusted with responsibility, like I have to be transparent and honest, kind of how it can go from my side. So that was critical. And I think that made all of the parties involved much more comfortable with the situation.
So you're back full-time now. What is the reality like? Is it as easy or as hard as you'd expected it to be? Because from what I hear, you did take some time out, which is awesome, but you actually you did everything you could to stay present in the loop through the board, through access to whatever you needed to stay in touch. How does it feel being on the other side?
Well, it feels different for sure, meaning that my life, honestly, at the moment, is reduced to 3 things. My well-being, which is sleep and a bit of exercise. It's my family and my work. Like almost nothing else exists. Yeah, so I have no time to watch TV series, to do some educational stuff, which I love to do. I love to learn new things. My hobbies are in the background. My friends, unfortunately, are in the background. Yeah, so I'm not meeting them. I more often call them than have a chance to meet them, and that's okay for now, right? And I know that this too shall pass, right? However, in terms of work, I've found that having less time and being more critical about my resources has actually been very helpful for me, both as an employee and also as a leader, right? So now when I go to work, I start each day with a question to myself, how can I drive the most value? Because I don't have time for hundreds of projects, right? I cannot work, 14 hours a day. It's no longer a reality for me at the moment. So I need to do things that matter. So it's ruthless prioritization. And kind of the second part of that, as a manager, I'm also very aware that each decision that we don't make today is just adding to my virtual to-do list, right? I'm going to have to
the
solve
mental
it
load
someday.
is insane. Yeah,
Absolutely. So I'm trying to make decisions as quickly as possible. I'm trying to give directions to the people as clear as possible and absolutely make sure that they understand, because I don't have time for many iterations, right? And also I'm giving very candid feedback when I can, because I'm relying on my team so much at the moment to still have that pipeline going, to be able to do many things. I cannot pick up the slack for anybody anymore, right? So it is different, but I wouldn't say that it's worse. It's like efficiency 101, I think.
So obviously, again, we just heard about the fear of having that pregnancy and the topic of babies in the room, be it the founder, the shareholder, a fund partner. I'm sure there are lots of amazing founders here in the audience or there in the hallways who are single-mindedly focused on executing their startup's vision, and obviously you can empathize with them when they think of, well, how can I even think about having somebody in the C-suite who's not here? 2 months may not seem like a lot for most people, but 2 months in my startup is like years. We all know the cliche. You can empathize with that fear, and obviously sometimes we've all heard an ugly story or two when there are fewer opportunities available for usually women, but not always, because they are brave enough to bring up the fact that they also do want to have families. So what do you think of that fear, and what's your perspective on that now that you've actually experienced being an executive and being a mother?
It's a good question. I actually also hired a lot of young mothers who just had kids historically, and what I've seen is all of them appreciate the opportunity to be at work, to work and to contribute so much, right? So I don't worry about it. And when you are hiring that co-founder or that executive, you are looking in that person for the skill set that's exactly kind of the skill set and also the personal qualities that will allow them to navigate such situations in a good way, right? So if you're hiring somebody, in this case her, because she's bright, she's driven, she's motivated, she knows how to run stuff, she knows how to organize, that is not going away, right? That is not going away. That's why don't be afraid to hire, but also don't be afraid to have that conversation of, and I know it's not a question that you can ask during a job interview, right? But in more informal setting, I think it's okay to talk about how would potentially that look like? What's the timeline, right? And I think that anybody accepting a position should also be open-minded about having that conversation. So kind of both sides should be transparent and to understand kind of what's the, maybe unwritten at that point, but ideally written, as Agnes said, what's the agreement that they're entering into?
So actually, what I'm hearing is that being a mother makes you even more qualified for the job sometimes, because you describe that ruthless prioritization, being clear about your priorities and the trade-offs.
With one caveat, if you have the support system, right? Because kids get sick, sometimes they don't sleep, right? So like, I mean, become best friends with your mom and your mom-in-law, right? Because like, or like have a nanny, right? Because those are gonna be people you have to rely on and really trust when the stuff gets hard, because it's not always possible to decide or like to not attend that meeting, right, for some reason. And sometimes you also cannot really like leave your kid at home, right? So like having that support system is critical. And I think that kind of, it's okay to expect from women to be able to perform if they have that support system, but not otherwise, because it's like being a mom is more than a full-time job, to be honest.
There's certainly no free lunch, for sure. Okay, so you've shared a long list of things that would-be parents and would-be employers, startup founders should take notes of, and this is an amazing framework on how to optimize everything you can. And you shared earlier that you've chosen to move your gym routine and everything closer to home, such that and you only go to the office outside the rush hour to optimize the time. And I think all of those are so such practical and really necessary decisions you have to make. So what happens when something falls through the cracks? What happens when you can't optimize everything? Or are there perhaps again, decisions or situations when you've felt like, okay, I really have to do this, my plan requires X, Y, Z of me, but hey, this is life, and I have to pivot. How does that ever happen to you?
Of course. I mean, it happens to everybody, right? So I think I already mentioned it's about flexibility and giving up the absolute control. So the way I look at it is like, I've built this system that is working for me now majority of the days. Right? Some days it does not, and then there's compromise. When many days like that occur, I have to rebalance the system. So again, sit down, consider what my priorities are. Like exactly like as I mentioned, like I had this workout group in Riga earlier, and I live in Jūrmala, which is like 30 kilometers away. I just cannot go there anymore. I loved going painting with my friends on Wednesday evenings, but then it's the rush hour when I need to commute and I'm away from my kid for a long time. I remove that if I cannot do it for now. And like kind of have the priorities at the top, right? The system supporting those priorities, feeding into what you do day to day, and then take time to rebalance when you feel that something is not working anymore.
Yeah. So what I'm taking from this is, and the lessons I'm taking from you are, be clear on your priorities and the trade-offs up front. Be clear with your team and what your priorities are. Double down on systems that you already have in your life in the past, and just see what works and apply that mindset to the family life as well. What else should the would-be parents, the would-be founders here in the audience, even if family building is not on their radar right now, what is one thing that you wish everybody started doing now, even if kids are, say, 5 years away?
Being mindful about what you're doing and why, right? So that's the key, right? A lot of us are just going down the stream and just reacting to the situations occurring in their life, but like design your life, understand where you want to be, and structure the things that you're doing and that you're committing to in order to get to that desired outcome. And for that, like mindfulness is required, and it's different for everybody, right? For some, it's therapy, journaling, meditation, or just having honest conversations with yourself while you drive to work.
Awesome. I think that's everything we have time for today, even though I could talk to you for hours. Thank you.
Thank you.